I understand people want to see the gameplay, the people want to get their hands on the game, I understand that. But this was important. And actually, through conversations I've had with people, specifically actually Mr. Dubs, who makes a lot of videos on us, I became convinced that a 1v1 is actually not the way to go. If we put out something that's lackluster or doesn't have the content that people want, there are certain games that people are lucky enough that, or the developers are lucky enough that the fans go back to.
Yeah.
But it's a risk.
Yeah.
If you put out something, that first impressions are everything. And that wasn't my opinion when I started this. But after talking to people, and I was then convinced of it. I was then convinced of, yeah, we only get one shot. We want to be the best wrestling video game that there is. And we only get one shot at a first impression.
There you have it, folks. You can blame me for the delays to the demo of this game. Seriously, though, I really appreciate the shout out from Sam and the boys over at Ultra Pro Wrestling. Thank you so much. I'm so proud to cover this game, and it's really true. They're only ever really going to get one chance at a first impression for this game, so they need to hit it out of the park. And after watching this entire interview, I have confidence that they will. And now, with that out of the way, Dubious Ones, welcome back to the channel. Make sure, as always, you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bam, watching Akuma do his thing. But, as always, make sure you're subscribed, like the video, leave me your feedback in the comment section down below, and make sure you're following me over on X at MrDubs86 so that you never ever miss a video. Links to all my socials will be, as well as all the Ultra Pro Wrestling's socials, including the link to the entire 3-hour deep dive, will be left in the description down below. So always be checking the video descriptions for all of my videos. Now, with that out of the way, today we're going over my clef notes of the nearly 3-hour developer deep dive that went over the animation process for Ultra Pro Wrestling and what makes it so complex. We're getting to hear the passion that Sam and the team have for the AKI engine. So what I've done is I've cut together what I personally deemed the most fascinating parts on everything. Like as far as the UPW's history and development. But I'm going to break this into multiple parts as there is so much to this. And I really just want to be able to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on everything as we're watching it together. But I definitely encourage everyone, when you have the time, to go and listen to the entire deep dive. It's really, really interesting. And the entire nearly 3 hours was just too much for me to be able to cover in one video. So with that said, I've cut out mainly the stuff that I've already covered on the channel, like Sam's history growing up as a wrestling fan, the whole ICW story, and how this initially was going to be a game developed for that promotion way back in 2017. And instead, I've focused solely on the aspects that are pertaining specifically to Ultra Pro Wrestling, the ups and downs of development, and tried to capture some of the passion that Sam and Gimbles have for this project. That being said, this again is just part one of my coverage of this incredible insight into Ultra Pro Wrestling. So stay tuned to the channel for part two. Now, I'll leave a few timestamps for you guys to follow along, to be able to skip through if you need to, or to be able to come back to this video, as it is a long one. So I understand if you can't get through the entire video in one watch, you might have to come back to the video, because even with this cut together parts of the interview, I'm going to be leaving my feedback and thoughts on it as well. So this is going to be a longer video, but make sure you do stay tuned to the very end of the video, as I have covered, I've captured all the little bits of the new gameplay animations, as a lot of people were curious to that. And in the live stream, even in the live chat, like, we were seeing a lot of people being like, I want to see the new animations. Where is it? What is that? So all the new gameplay animations we got from this interview, along with our massive bombshell announcement, all of that will be towards the end of the video for you guys. Again, I'll leave you timestamps. But now let's get into this, because this was absolutely amazing, and you're gonna love this video. So let's go.
But with the AKI games, I think nailed it with the animations. But yeah, the other thing as well is like there's a sort of realness to them and obviously when AKI were making those moves, they were looking at video footage and you know, slowing it down and going frame by frame, and I think there's actually people that have found the actual footage.
Yeah. And there's also hand-drawn animations that have came out from Destiny. You know, the way that the approach to putting moves together is very different from just the straight motion capture that you see in a lot of moves nowadays that lose a lot of the fun and the detail and the exaggeration that makes wrestling exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you can make a powerbomb look devastating, and in a way that you maybe can't with motion capture unless like you're just trying to kill the guy that's.
So I'm going to be doing this a lot through the video, you guys. So I do apologize, but that's what you tuned in for, right? You want my thoughts and feedback on this. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this, so that's why I wanted to get it out to you guys, and that's why I had to break it up into multiple parts, because this was a huge interview, and big shout outs to the guys at Hyperfocus Games for putting this out there for us, because I personally, first of all, love the transparency from these guys, giving us, you know, basically putting their heart on their sleeve and showing us a lot of like pre-alpha, super early dev footage of stuff that they were working on, or what Sam was working on long before Ultra Pro Wrestling was ever even a thing. So we got to see a lot of really cool stuff. But one of the biggest things for me, and the biggest things about those AKI games, what made them look so great, is what they're saying is the move animations themselves, the selling and everything else, the impact. It was so crazy, and that's what I love about the handcrafted moves. It was actually probably my favorite part of the AEW Fight Forever, is that they didn't use motion capture. And motion capture can only go so far. It's great. It's also very expensive. This animation, same thing. Creating these animations are very time-consuming. But I really, really personally I prefer the handcrafted, hand-drawn animations to the motion capture that we've had for so many years now. I really do prefer it. I've always have. And I really enjoyed that part of Fight Forever. For me, that was a big thing. Again, leave me your feedback in the comments below, because I always want to hear from you guys. But yeah, that's something I really appreciate about this game, is every animation, new and old, are going to be hand-drawn from the ground up. So let's get back into it.
But yeah, but then it's sort of trying to find this balance as well, because you can add in a little more oomph to make the moves look really devastating. But then at what point do you get into the territory of like WWE All-Stars, where like, you know, there's a spectrum. There's motion capture on one side, there's WWE All-Stars on the other. And I know people like those games. I'm not a fan of the jumping up in the air and slamming them down. Funnily enough, I love the aesthetic. The maybe All-Stars is a bit too over-proportioned, but like the idea of that Fortnite-y stylized look that we've obviously went for, I love that. And I think usually when games companies and developers see that style, their mind goes towards, okay, cartoony, so it's going to be this, and it's going to be like flames coming out their hands and fucking all this stuff.
Exactly. Now, first of all, shout outs to Main Event Strizer, our buddy Clint, friend of the channel. Him and we got to interview Sam ourselves way back last year. It was a very fun interview. Big shout outs, and so much appreciation on the folks at Hyperfocus Games and Sam himself for taking the time to let us do that. But shout outs to Clint, because I know he was a huge fan of the WWE All-Stars game, and he loved that style of game. He does look for that kind of thing. But I think Sam is right here in thinking that generally when you see that type of animation, you're very much expecting, like, you're going to see Hadoukens, you're going to see all these crazy things. And some people like that. Like, if you're looking at, like, the Def Jam games as well, they had the over-the-top finishers and stuff. Just know that Ultra Pro Wrestling is not going to be that. So for those of you looking for, like, a Def Jam sequel where you're getting those over-the-top crazy animations for the finishers and stuff like that, where you're jumping 50 feet in the air and having the crazy stuff, That's not what we're getting out of this AKI, whatever you want to call it, sequel, basically, or spiritual successor, if you will, to like No Mercy rather than Def Jam, right? This is more like if they were to continue making games beyond No Mercy or beyond Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, this is what they're hoping for, is what like they're hoping to produce for us. So we're not going to be getting those super over the top moves, which I'm happy for, because as much as I enjoyed those games as well, that's not what I'm looking for in this game. But sound off in the comments. Did you guys like WWE All Stars? Were you a fan of those games as well? But let's get back into it.
And I don't know, I just think, if you can get that aesthetic, but keep everything else kind of realistic, there's something there where it works. Yeah. Because, I mean,
agreed.
The realism is, I would say, more important than the stylized aesthetic. But the stylized aesthetic really works well with the concept of the creator wrestler. The other thing is, obviously, we're fucking low budget as fuck.
You're right.
Despite what one person on Twitter thought, which we'll maybe go into later. But yeah, no, we are very, very low budget. Even with the Kickstarter money, we are very low budget.
I was going to ask, where is your butler?
Oh, he just turned the camera on and is, getting me another drink.
So again, this is something that a lot of people in my comments as well, they're not necessarily familiar. There's literally like 5 guys. It's mainly Sam that you're hearing from right now that's pretty much done everything for the show. But he's got like 4 other friends or people he's hired to like help make some like move animations, just because that process, as you're going to hear later in the interview, would take way too long for one person to do. But like, even with all the Kickstarter money they made, which wasn't a lot, I think it was maybe 40, 50 grand, something like that. It wasn't a whole lot raised. I am a Kickstarter supporter, just for those of you who aren't aware, one of the championship supporters, still awaiting my beautiful UPW title coming in the mail at some point. But it's really incredible what they've been able to do with such a small budget, because if you think back to Fight Forever, AEW Fight Forever had reportedly a budget of over $10 million, possibly even $20 million. And we got a game that still felt rushed and unfinished. It was fun. The engine is great. I don't think anybody argues that the engine in Fight Forever is like really, really fun. And it was very similar to the AKI engine. It's very similar to that. Different in some ways, but still a lot of fun to play. It's just, there was so much missing from it as far as a single player experience, creation suite, mismanaged money, everything. Like, there was just so many issues with it. And that, again, a budget of like 10 plus million that we're aware of, potentially even 20 plus million from reports of what that game's budget was. These guys out of their Kickstarter got, again, like, what was it, 40 or 50 grand? And there's 5 people working on it versus a studio of what, hundreds of people working on Fight Forever. So you have to temper expectations on this being the greatest wrestling game of all time right off the hop before they're able to add stuff to it and everything else over time, because they will be continuing to support the game and adding so much stuff way beyond launch for years to come after launch. There's going to be a lot of free and additional upgrades to the game, which is something I'm so happy about, because these guys are so passionate. They're fans, man. They're fans. They're huge fans, and they want to do this right. But we have to remember, temper our expectations. That's the whole point of this video, is they're showing us like how difficult it is to develop a wrestling game. It's not an easy task. And even with the most passionate people, it's such a small studio that some people thought they're, these wealthy guys, super rich, like he's got a butler that's bringing him a drink. No, these guys are putting in the time and they're grinding away out of passion. And I think it's really important for you guys to really understand and appreciate that.
Actually, Stephen, who's here with us and helped set all this up, he was one of the guys that was with me back in the day with ICW, taking pictures and all that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, just thought to throw that in. But what was I going to say? The aesthetic that we went for just works so well with the creator wrestler. That's what I was saying. Yeah, we're low budget, so like the idea of realism, actually, funnily enough, with the ICW game, that kind of hadn't occurred to me how difficult that would be. And I'm sure when I show you guys the stuff from ICW that no one's seen, you'll see what I mean. Where like we didn't, not that we really went for realism. I guess we were trying to go in that direction, but it was difficult getting the lighting and everything right. I mean, you'll see. It's not a walk in the park trying to get stuff looking real. And so hats off to any game developers that are doing that, because it's a challenge. But
so that's basically his shout out to like Virtual Basement and the Wrestling Code right there, because they're going for that hyper realistic, compete with WWE 2K as far as the look of the game kind of deal. And he's explaining why. Their art style, I personally love the art style of Ultra Pro Wrestling. But those who are looking for hyper realistic, you wouldn't get. I don't think you get a very good wrestling game if you go for that, with these, with a small indie studio like this. Until the advancements in AI come so much further to be able to just facilitate a faster process, an easier process for making stuff like that. It's like making the game this way. There's a reason AEW Fight Forever with a $10 million budget went with the art style they did, right? It was like a $10+ million budget. But building a wrestling game from the ground up is a huge undertaking. That's why we've seen so many projects come and go in this space as far as like creating this thing, or they're always lackluster. So I have high hopes for Ultra Pro Wrestling, but I also understand that I have to temper my expectations because this is such an undertaking. But let's continue.
More importantly, like, whilst we of course didn't have the budget for realism or motion capture,
which I'm a fan of.
I'm
happy we're not going motion capture.
The Creator Wrestler is such a big part, and not just the Creator Wrestler system, but just the idea of making the game, whatever this game is, make it your own, is such a big part of what I loved about those AKI games, because I was a big ECW fan. So like the idea that you could go into that game,
me too,
and just create a whole roster of ECW guys. It helped that you had like Taz and the Dudleys, and you had a few other people, but like, you could use the Dudleys attire to make Spike.
Yeah.
He's talking about No Mercy,
and obviously there was some Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 assets I think carried over. So I can't remember if you had to actually unlock them or if you just got them as part of the base game. But you had the Sabu pants, because obviously they were used for the Hayabusa type character in VPW. So I actually get confused with Virtual Pro Wrestling with what licensed ones they had and which ones like they didn't, and all that stuff. But
I think they got confused as well.
But anyway, you had those pants so you could make Sabu, and there was a scar and everything. Like, so it was great, And again, it was like everyone that you made, it felt like it fit into the game. So that's an important point that we made. So that the aesthetic that we went for, I think, completely caters to that. But anyway, yeah. So we're kind of almost.
So before we get on to the next part, I agree that it's super important that like you don't want your creator wrestlers to feel completely out of place. And sometimes you get that with like the 2K series. It's gotten better because the 2K series it looks incredible. And some of the amazing creators out there, because of community creations, are able to make characters that do look like they fit into the game. But for many, many years, decades even, your creator wrestlers would not look like they fit into the game with a lot of these games, just because of how good the models in game looked versus the options you were given in the creation suite. So I really appreciate that the art style they're going with here, all the characters are built basically through the creation system itself for the in-game models, so that when you make a Stone Cold Steve Austin or a Roman Reigns or a Cody Rhodes or an MJF or a Kenny Omega or a Will Ospreay, when you're making your favorite wrestlers from today or from yesteryear, they're all going to look like they fit into the game and into the art style. And because we're going to be having things like an image uploader or a community creations or like the in-game paint tool to be able to create your own logos and designs, you're going to be able to fully customize and make your own sandbox game. So you can turn this into an ECW game or a WCW game, like all those No Mercy mods we have. This you're going to properly be able to do that in a game and have all the promotions you want, anything you want. And the creation, there is no limit to the amount of creator wrestlers. It's literally going to be limited to your hard drive space. So you can have an infinite amount of creations in this game, downloaded from community creations, or ones that you've created yourself. So you're going to be able to have a full WCW, full 80s WWF, full 90s WWF, full 2000s, any era of wrestling you want, any amount of characters. That is all up to you. This is your open sandbox wrestling game, and that's what turned me on the most to this game. I'm so excited that this whole game is basically being built from the ground up through the creation suite, because that's the most important thing to them, and that is amazing for us.
Getting off track because we're talking about the aesthetic of the characters and stuff like that, and that is something that I think we'll try and go into on another episode.
Well, you were talking about like the moves when you were ICW and you're going to try and put together how the characters were moving around. How did you approach that initially?
Yes, so again, like I first of all started trying to create my own moves.
Right.
And
that seems very difficult.
Yeah, the timing of it, yeah, it was difficult, and I quickly kind of thought, this is not easy. This is like something that I'm probably gonna have to, because I mean, I can make a power bomb. I can animate someone doing a power bomb, but it doesn't look good. And then of course we're doing this whole game in the vein of AKI, and so I thought, right, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm going to have to try and match the animations that were in the AKI games. Now, a very easy way of doing this would have been to rip the animations. And of course, people look at our animations in UPW and say, oh, cool, you guys somehow ripped them. So let's just be clear. There is no way to rip the animations from the AKI games. It's not possible.
No.
You can rip animations, I think,
it would have been done.
GameCube games. And later, I think GameCube was what you were able to do it, but certainly after that, like later, like the way that you could get characters from games, they have a rig set up, and you use that rig to basically transfer an animation from one character to another, and you could preserve the animation. The AKI animations are dead in terms of like being able to salvage what all they like. You can't rip them, you can't do anything with them. All you can do is observe them. But me being obsessed with the AKI games, and the idea for this game being, and we're talking now about this ICW game, the idea for the gameplay was to mimic the AKI engine, which again, even back then, this was like something that obviously fans were wanting. Anyway, the process of this was initially first just observing the way the animations look and trying to recreate them without any guide or anything like that, just trying to do the suplex or the powerbomb or whatever. And again, the results were terrible. Just looked bad. Just, the elbows and the knees and everything. I could get the timing right, but the placement of where his hand was and all that stuff, it just looked really like you didn't care. Like you're giving someone a powerbomb and you're just like, there, done the powerbomb. So I wasn't completely sure of the best approach, but to be honest, I don't want other animations.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to the effort of, in every fucking wrestling game.
Before I let him continue, I just want to point out, when he says we don't want other animations, that does not mean they're not going to be putting in animations into this game that were not in the No Mercy games. Like No Mercy, when No Mercy was done, there was no F5 in that game. There was no Styles Clash in those games. There was no Van Daminator, Van Terminators. There was tons of moves that we're very well used to today that will be in this game. They are creating their own moves. What he's saying is that when he was first approaching this, before Ultra Pro Wrestling was a thing, that you didn't want moves that didn't, like the AKI, you wanted them to look like the AKI moves. And they don't want other moves in this game because you could go and search out for assets and just get wrestling moves. But if they are not in the AKI style, then it's not good enough. But I'll let him continue.
Comes out and says, we're going to be just like AKI. We're going to be the spiritual successor. I don't want to be like AKI. I want to fucking be AKI. I want it to be like people see this and go, oh shit, AKI is making another game.
Exactly.
So it's like, to me, it was really important to get the animations as perfectly recreated as possible. So I came up with an idea. and yeah, this will lead into the video, and then I'll go back and say that thing I was going to say. But the idea was, I'm going to screen record the animation. So let's say it's a suplex. I'll just go into the game engine, or the emulator, sorry, and I'll load up from the creator wrestler in No Mercy, the guy doing the suplex, and I'll screen record it. And once I've got it screen recorded, it's then a video that I can then, keyframe through it. I can know exactly how many frames there are in the animation.
First of all, you guys don't understand how many animations there are, like how many moves are in a game that's over 25 years old. The amount of moves that were in No Mercy, I think, were probably more than we even got with Fight Forever in a 25-year-old wrestling game. Obviously, it was the culmination of like WCW, NWO, World Tour versus the World Tour, Virtual Pro Wrestling, WCW, NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, Virtual Wrestling 2, No Mercy. It's a culmination of all those games and all those moves added up. But the amount of moves that are there and the amount of time it would take that they've had to be able to go through and record each and every single move and then go in frame by frame to meticulously recreate every single move that was in those games. It's absolutely bananas, the amount of the length, just the time that it would take to do I hope you guys understand and appreciate the passion that they have to have for this game, because like he said, if it's a game from like GameCube and beyond, you can rip animations right out of there, and this game would have been out already. Like, it would have been way easier, and then they just have to animate a few things on the side. They're handcrafting every animation meticulously, going frame by frame to try and make it look identical to the way it was in those AKI games. I call it AKI, he calls it AKI, whatever. Call it what you will. But like those old AKI games, oh, my goodness. It's the level of dedication. Again, shout out to the whole crew at Hyperfocus Games. You guys are doing amazing work, and we appreciate you. And Dubious Ones, please sound off in the comments down below. It's crazy that these guys are putting this kind of effort into this game. So I needed to point that out.
Like, not just, I think that's roughly about 45 frames, I get out my little stopwatch, and like I would actually know the actual frame count if I was to do it this way. And then I thought, if I record it front on and then I record it side on, I can take a screenshot of like the first frame.
I know most of you know what this is, but some of you are younger fans that might not be aware. This is No Mercy. This was No Mercy for the N64. This is where they're just showing us. They're literally taking every move and recording it and then going frame by frame and going like 10 frames at a time from the side angle, from the front angle. And so to be able to properly animate them.
Of animation, maybe then like 10 frames later, take another screenshot. Then 10 frames later, take another screenshot. And then what I can do is I can bring them into the 3D modeling program. And I can basically just try and line it up. I'll have a canvas on the back and a canvas to the side where I can put these screenshots on, and I can literally just move the guy's hand into position, and that will get the placement of his elbows and his knees and everything like that. So the context of the animations here, when you see that jankiness, this is to try and as well show people, look,
these guys are literally 3D rendering and placing every limb and body part in the right place so that it looks right. I'm sorry. Thank you guys for doing this. This is amazing.
For anyone out there that is convinced that we've somehow managed to rip the animations, and again, I'll say it's not possible. And if it was possible, I don't think I'd have any fucking shame in doing it. Just to get that out there as well, because, ripping content from games is not something I'm in favour of. When it's a game that's fucking 25 years old and there is no way of a sequel, it's not going to happen. I don't give a fuck. Like I would rip them if I could, but I can't.
Part of it's preservation as well.
Yeah,
that,
yeah. I mean, those games, and look, it's not to say that they're not being preserved, because they are. The modern community is preserving them.
Yeah.
The modern community is going in and reskinning them and actually doing stuff that blows my mind, where they're like, they're using, although you can't rip the animations, you can go in and you can identify the hex code that's used to construct the animation within the game, and they figured out a way to take snippets of that code and stitch it onto another bit of code. So within the game, they can actually create new animations. I've spoken about this before, and it still blows my mind that they can do that with the modders. But anyway, yeah, so they're doing cool stuff. They're preserving it. They're updating it. They're making those games worth going back to and playing again with all the stuff that they can do.
So I don't know how many of you have, if you're fans of the AKI series, you've probably seen these. There have been lots of mods for, again, the last 25 years. There have been lots of people who've modded No Mercy and taken that engine and stuff. What I'm still surprised by is that most of these mods for No Mercy don't include a story mode. Like, even the same one that was just left from No Mercy. So I can't imagine the amount of time and how hard it is to be able to mod these things. Because I've seen modded F5s into the game, for instance, or styles clashes or different moves. And they've gotten better over the years. It's been 25 years. But a lot of them, they look so janky and terrible. And I just never understood how difficult it was to mod those games. But if you could just rip the assets out like you could from anything, like you said, GameCube and beyond, it would be so much easier. But as we know, that's not possible. So I think it's super cool that they're doing this, because 20 years down the line, 25 years from now, if someone wants to recreate, say, if Hyperfocus Games isn't still around and making amazing wrestling games, fingers crossed that they are, and they're making us new wrestling games and cool stuff, or adding to this game. But if they're not, someone will be able to take these assets, though, and be able to repurpose them and do something with them in 25 years from now. But like, as where we couldn't do that with No Mercy. So I think the fact that we're getting them to, even if we didn't get new moves, new grapple mechanics, or anything new, and new match types and everything else that we are getting, just the fact that we're getting all of the move animations that were in the entire AKI franchise, all of the different games, No Mercy and Virtual Pro Wrestling and all those games, the fact that they're just giving us that alone is amazing. And that's something I'm thankful for. But let's continue.
With the mods. But for me, as exciting as that is, and as cool as that is, and you know, like, fuck, I downloaded like the WCW Feel the Bang mod and the ECW mod. And so, although I wasn't really a modder, I think I fucked around with some text. I made Captain America one time by retexturing, but I was not like big into the modding scene. But I did download the mods and I thought they were cool. I loved them, but the limitation is that you're never going to get more than 4 characters on screen. I don't think.
Exactly.
Prove me wrong. The modders, they'll probably fucking figure out a way to do it.
We've never seen it so far.
But I just came at it from like
25 years.
You're not going to be able to extend the amount of characters on screen.
Play online is another one.
You're not going to be able to play online. Although I think someone pointed out, I might be wrong about that. I think there might have been something where someone made it that possible.
So when they say you can't play online, what's really weird to me and strange to me, because again, I don't follow the modding scene for No Mercy and for N64 games, but I know when I was first ever playing the Fire Pro games back in like 1998, when I was a wee lad, I was playing Super Fire Pro Wrestling X Premium on an SNES emulator. And I was playing a version of that game that was fully translated into English by fans, like a hacked ROM. It was fully translated in English. All the menus, all the character names, everything was fully translated into English. But that game, the game itself didn't have anything, but the SNES emulator itself allowed for online play, where I would play with one of my best friends growing up. We played that game together, where you would just connect IPs, like you just entered the other person's IP address, and as long as you had the same ROM file, along with the same SRAM, like which was like your save file, where like the SRAMs you could get full WCW, WWF, ECW rosters like of the create, because that game had Create a Wrestler and I think about 80 slots for creator wrestlers. And again, this was a game that was released in '96 for the Super Nintendo. I was playing it on an emulator in like '98. But you could get these SRAMs of fully created rosters, which is what got me into the Fire Pro series. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But as long as we were on the same save file, like SRAM or whatever that it loaded, and the same ROM, then we could play together online, just on the emulator. So to me, hearing that like N64 emulators, maybe the hacked games aren't running through the emulators, maybe that's why. But I would assume, like, can't you just play online with the emulator if you have like the other person's IP or whatever? Like, I don't know. Like, this was a thing literally in 98, 99, 2000 with dial-up internet, like a 56K modem. We were able to play seamlessly with no problems. Play online on like Super Fire Pro on the emulators. So it's weird to me hearing that like it's a big issue for these games like in 2025 that they can't get online. Again, I don't know anything about the modding scene as far as for these games, because they're not running in an emulator. It causes an issue, so they'd have to create it themselves or something. I don't know, but I'm assuming like, do these emulators not have an option for online? Because again, this was an SNES emulator from like '99. I don't remember if it was a Z-SNES or one of the other ones, but it was like, this was in like 98, 99, 2000 that I was able to play these games online back then on an emulator. So I just thought this was a weird part where I was like, really? They can't get these mods online? I mean, I don't expect online lobbies where you can like search matches, but like being able to at least connect to a friend and play. We were able to do that 27 years ago.
I could be wrong about that. But in order to do that, in order to upgrade the game, you still, you're not going to really appeal to the masses with it because it's so much effort to find the right plugin and, you know, all that kind of stuff. There's so many barriers. I want to talk about the animations and the process and how difficult it was. And being able to show that trailer and show how janky they are. Mm-hmm. I think one speaks to what I'm saying about how difficult it was to get them right. But also, hopefully, shuts up anyone that thinks that, you know, we've just went in and grabbed them somehow. Because again, it's not possible. Creating these animations is very difficult. I eventually realised that it didn't have to be a licensed game. It didn't have to have characters. The game engine was the thing that was important. But actually, there was a little step in between that. Before I got to that point, where I was like, I could release this just with fictional characters and it's the game engine that's important. Yeah. Before I got to that point, I actually started thinking, I don't care if this gets released. I don't care if this, like, you know, if I can't make any money off of this, I'm going to do this for me. And therefore, if I'm doing it for me, and I'm not doing it, you know, to make a product that I can sell, then I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want. Mm-hmm. And so I just had this idea. I actually still vividly remember lying in bed, because I think this is probably from memory. I think this is the way that it happened. I went to bed. I got this idea in my head of, oh, I've got this like game engine for a wrestling game that I've been working on based on AKI. I'm still obsessed with AKI and everything. And I just had that thought of like, I could basically recreate one of the AKI games. I could basically take like Revenge and just actually recreate it and see how far I get. Mm-hmm. And that'll be fun. And I ended up not going to sleep that night. I ended up getting up out of bed, went over to my computer, and I started building the menu system for like actually the Revenge menu system. I went and...
This is how it all began, folks. Just a passionate fan wanting to make something cool for himself. Once upon a time, Bungie used to have their creed or their motto was that they made games that they wanted to play. They made games for themselves, something for them. And that's how this project all started. That's how this is, but long before the name Ultra Pro Wrestling or anything was started, he said, you know what? Why don't I just try this? Why don't I just do this? I'm going to do it for myself and it's going to be fun. And that way I can do whatever I want with it. I love that. That's the passion. These guys are passionate about the AKI engine, and he is Sam. I absolutely love this guy. So I can't say enough good things. I have faith in this game, but I love the passion.
Found like that the menu has the flame font. In fact, hold on, I've got it here. I can bring this up.
So you're gonna show us here his early stuff.
This is sadly the only footage that I have from this, and it's not great. It comes up there, but anyway. So you can see actually the menu system. So these aren't the graphics from Revenge, although they look exactly like them. This was like recreated. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage, but I actually got the animation frame for frame perfect for like hovering over the menu.
Seeing something like it all collapses down in the way that it does.
If you've seen it, then I must have footage of it somewhere. So I'll try and dig that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't find it when I was looking through some stuff here.
But it's spot on essentially. Like,
I mean, again, I was doing basically in the same way, like, you know, reproducing the AKI animations where I'd put the guy's hand in the right place, or even like when we were measuring the garage. I've just always been very meticulous. It has to be like pixel perfect, like, you know. So that menu is.
Says that.
I think at that stage. Possibly, you know, someone will correct me because they'll might go in and compare and be like, oh, that's not, you know, it should be up a bit or something like that. But no, like my goal was to basically get it like a remaster of.
I think his looks a little bit better, to be honest.
And again,
if I'm being honest,
to sell that, you know, I might be able to put out videos on it. Actually, if I'd known what you can do now with YouTube, where like you've seen the guy that makes the Simpsons Hit and Run.
Yeah.
So if
Yubs, I think his name is.
Or if I'd have known that you could like monetize that content, just the whole process of remaking a game, back then I'd have been doing that, and I would have been meticulously remaking Revenge with upscaled graphics and all that.
See, he wanted to be one of us. He could have been one of us. Sam could have been one of the content creators. But if that was the case, then Ultra Pro Wrestling probably would have never seen the light of day, and instead he'd be recreating all these former masterpieces, making videos on them, and making a living that way. But I'm super happy we're getting Ultra Pro Wrestling, so I'm happy he didn't realize that was a possibility, or wasn't really much of a possibility way back then.
But of course, I didn't know that was a thing that you
selfishly
could do. So I was just making this purely for me. Didn't really expect anyone to ever see it at any point. But so one of the reasons I'm bringing this up just now as well is because I was showing this to Stephen earlier on, and I actually said to him, you can see the models I've created there, and I was going through like, I'm like, this is cool because what you can see is the commentary booth off to the side.
On the
so
left
what I did there with the commentary booth is I actually just took like some of the stuff from like the textures and everything from the entranceway and used those parts to create. So this is basically if AKI.
So again, what he just said there, what I want to touch on is he took these assets that he was already using for these, and he just repurposed them to make this. And he mentioned it earlier about like the Hell in a Cell cage and just taking assets that are already in the game and repurposing them to see what they can do and stuff. And this is something for me. The reason I'm bringing this up is from Fight Forever. I thought from some of the mini games they had the assets already there to be able to make a steel cage match. They already had the assets in some of their mini games to be able to use them and repurpose them elsewhere, which is I thought was like the biggest miss. I'm like, why are they not adding these very basic things when you already have the assets in game? And Hal is thinking about, or sorry, not Hal. I'm thinking Hal Haney, their art director, but no, Sam Vallely. He thought about this and just in making this 10 years ago or 8 years ago, 7 years ago, however long ago this was that he was doing this. But he thought just reuse the assets, and that's how he made the little commentary booth that Nitro used to have.
I had done the commentary.
I thought that was great.
That's what it would look like. And that's just cool to me. I'm just geeking out over it, like oh, that looks so cool. But yeah, you can see the banner, right? As far as I remember, that banner actually changed. I actually edited that, went into Photoshop, cleaned up, made it up like... in fact, I don't think I was going to say I think I must have upscaled it, but I don't think I think back then I purposely wasn't like, upscaling anything because I wanted it to be like, if AKI had made it, what would it look like?
Cool.
So yeah, actually in the video that I've got here, you see the little
Nitro.
the Nitro, yeah.
And stuff like that, yeah.
So that was something else again, where it's like, I'm kind of saying, well, if AKI was to make it, but at the same time, what if they weren't limited by anything? You know, so you could have the actual WCW Tron there playing the graphic, and I went back and looked at old footage of WCW and was like, oh, that's the graphic that they would play. So yeah, again, I was just doing this purely for myself, just to enjoy the process of
I love the passion.
an upscaled, remastered version of, in this case, Revenge. I've got some more footage here of where that eventually kind of took me. So yeah, I had a couple of models here. I don't know where the fuck, like, you know, the state of these models and the shaders and everything.
It's like Gilbert versus Glenn Gilberti, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're not looking great, but you can see the animations there, like, they're just
Not Ultra Pro Wrestling
sliding
footage.
about
This
all
is
over the
like
place.
super
I got to
pre-alpha.
the point where
Nothing
I
to do
realised
with
that
Ultra Pro Wrestling.
I
That was
could
stuff he
basically
made back then.
recreate the animations without them being janky. Very time consuming, took like, you know, a lot of work. It wasn't really something that, you know, I say it wasn't something like, you know, that anyone could do, but actually Frank was very, very good at being able to do it and knowing what to look for when doing it. But the point I'm trying to stress is it was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard process. But I managed to do enough of them. I remember actually the first one that I did was the Rocker Dropper, or the Faymaster. And it was the first one that I did that was smooth. It was like a new process I had, and it came out smooth. And I looked at it and I went, oh my fucking God, I've got a system here now. I've got something in place where I can do it. So me and Frank and Stephen actually sat down and recorded footage of every single move in the Creator Wrestler. Front.
This is what I'm talking about, chat. This is the passion and dedication for, like, it's so crazy to me how I can't fathom the amount of time this is with such a small studio. This is why I say you guys got to give these guys time. Rushing this game is not the answer. We don't want an unfinished product. We don't want another AEW fight forever. We need this game to like hit the ground running, even if it takes us and pushes us into potentially 2026. I have no insider knowledge. I'm just saying, if we get the game this year, that's fantastic. If we don't, it's fine. I want this game to be, you know, a real competitor, a real alternative for fans. It's not just going to get played for a month and then put away forever, even when they update it later in the future, and then you get 5% of that player base back. I don't want to see that.
And on the side, I've got them on a hard drive somewhere. If I find it, I'll throw up a screenshot of that, because you have no idea how much fucking work that took. Like that's
yeah.
it's not that it's really like a lot of work in terms of like the time it takes to do it, but it's so monotonous.
I can imagine,
because it's like it's not just like recording them and then splicing them. It's labeling them, making sure that they're all in the right folders. You need a folder for every, you know, whatever. So yeah,
as a content creator, I can appreciate all that.
Is because I got to a point where I was confident I could do it. I was confident I could take the animations and reproduce them and have them be smooth and have them basically be like, well, basically be what you saw then in the eventual Kickstarter trailer. All those animations were the result of this new process.
So when we go to the Kickstarter trailer, well, at that point, right, how many animations have you got done, and how long is it taking you to do those animations?
Oh fuck, I have no idea. A lot. I got through a lot, but well, a lot in terms of what though? A lot in terms of the full scale of the animations that are in those games. Fucking no. Probably barely, like, you know, no, barely scraping the surface when you think about the number of animations that are in those games.
There's a lot.
But that's actually the reason why the Kickstarter came about as an idea, because I'd worked out that well, I'd worked out there was like 1,400 moves around that. There was something like 1,400 moves in the game.
1,400.
And it was basically taken around a day or two to do each move. And if a move's a you know, a sweet chin music, you know, it's just one guy doing a kick. If the move is suplex, there's two characters that need to be animated there.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it when you say like there's 1,400 moves, but like fucking how many of those moves involve two people? So it's like double the work. And so I said, well, if this is going to average out about 2 days per move,
Think about that, chat. With one guy,
calculator on you, but I mean, what's that like? 1,400 times to 2,800. 2,800 days.
Minimum.
Compare that to years. I think at one point I worked out it was about I think it was 7 years. And
7 years.
So that's 7 years if you're doing nothing but animations.
Just for move animations.
The key part that you're going to come on to speaking about soon, that people hopefully now understand is, yes, that's 7 years or whatever to do the moves, but it's all connective tissue in between it, all the other animations that would need to be captured and would need to be put into the game.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I hadn't sat down and worked out how many of those, we call them like the universal animations.
Yeah.
Hadn't sat down and worked out how many of those there were. But when you think about it, you're thinking, okay, well, how many can there be? There's like, what's a universal animation?
More than you think.
It's like lying down, looking up. Lying down, looking down. You know, you're in that crouch position. You're in the turnbuckle, like, you know, selling. You're standing on the apron. And then of course there's all the taunts as well. Like there's apron taunts. But actually, I was thinking, oh fuck, you know, forget the taunts. Like that. They're not really needed to build out like you know, all the game and everything. So yeah, when I realized like how long it was going to take, the sheer number of animations, and looking at how long it was going to take to do each animation, and again, like although I enlisted the help of some friends to help me do some of the monotonous work, like recording all the front and side on, actual doing like going through, moving hands and getting them all in place. That was like all me. I'm sitting there doing that myself, and you know, just coming to this realization that this isn't going to work. I'm just not going to be able to. I mean, fucking 7 years if it's just me. So then
More than that.
thinking, well, if I put together a fundraiser and I can get some money, I can use that money to hire a bunch of people. And at this stage, I'm not thinking about hiring a programmer. I'm not thinking about hiring a 3D animator.
Exactly.
Modeler. All I'm thinking about is the animations.
Yeah. Just for
all
animations.
I'm thinking about is
nothing else.
I can hire people, because the other thing as well is like, because of this system that I've created to reproduce them, I don't need someone that's necessarily like an experienced animator. I just need someone that, you know, knows how to use a computer, and they can sit down and they can look through and they can go, all right, okay, so you want me to click this button and then move that in it. All right, okay, yeah, I can do that. As long as they know how to use a computer, like, you know, I could hire like fucking 10 people, and that would just cut down on all the time that it takes to reproduce these things. And again, not thinking about the sheer number of universal animations, which later I would realize was way fucking more than what I had thought.
Yep.
But yeah, so anyway, I put together the animations that I had, the characters that I'd developed. In fact, you know, just to show you how close I actually got with the animations. So I'll try and do a side by side.
This is cool, chat. This is
so
cool
we only
to see.
see one, but here's like the Falcon Arrow.
This isn't No Mercy.
Okay, so we're actually only viewing this as one at a time, but when we put this together in the video, we'll do a side by side.
This is what they recreated for that same
I
move.
think it's this one here, yeah.
Again, this is super early, like pre-alpha footage, chat. Like super early.
so you can see how close
That's
they are.
awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like if you compare it again to the jankiness of
The ICW.
the ICW one.
Yeah,
So-
see, like that diamond cutter.
So yeah, I was able to get.
So I cut out the ICW footage again. Link to this full video is going to be in the description if you want to check out that stuff. I cut out a large portion of the ICW history because I've covered out a lot of that on the channel before. But I do encourage you to go check out this whole video. But that was the difference between like the diamond cutter there and the Falcon Arrow. Like I thought they nailed the Falcon Arrow animation pretty well here, as far as it looking like pretty identical to the No Mercy one as far as timing, everything.
So you can see
It
how
looks
close they are.
awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like
Right?
if you compare it again to.
But that's how meticulously they're going through each and every single animation to make this game look incredible. Remember, those models that we just saw were not with the final product or anything for Ultra Pro Wrestling. They're just showing you early footage of like him making these
the
moves early
jankiness
on.
of
This,
the ICW.
not Ultra Pro Wrestling.
So-
that was ICW.
So yeah, I was.
That
able
was
to get
from like a decade
very
ago.
fucking there.
Nearly.
Everyone will look at them and go,
8
"Oh,
years ago or so.
they look like they were stolen. They look like they were ripped from the game because they're so close." I can see the little differences.
See, that's what he's saying. People think because the moves look identical to No Mercy and to like Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, like the AKI games, the AKI games, that people think they're stolen, they're ripped out of the game. But he explained, like, if they could do that, they would have done that. And this would have been done so long ago, we would have had in mods and different things. By now, we would have had a beautiful AKI successor wrestling games because people would have just ripped those assets out a long time ago.
But if that's what you think, if you think that we've gotten so close that we must have stolen them, ripped them somehow,
Yeah.
that's a fucking win for me because
Exactly.
for years I didn't think this was possible.
Yeah.
And I thought the closest that we're going to get is a janky fucking mess. So anyway, I'm happy with how they look, and for anyone who thinks that they are one-to-one, I'm glad you think so. So
Right?
So yeah, anyway.
That's awesome.
We get to the end of Kickstarter. I've realised it's going to take so much time. If we raise money, I'll take care of all the gameplay, the programming, all that side to it. The character models, I wasn't too really worried about. I mean, the ones that you see in the Kickstarter, they're kind of like the ones that I just shown there. Where like I sort of had a system, again, working with the creator wrestler of how I could switch out parts and how I could make them look passable. You know, they're not good. They're not looking great, but they're passable.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got a creator wrestler system and you can switch out the shorts with the whatever, and change the colors and stuff, then that's fine.
This is not representative of the final creation suite. If you've seen any of my other Ultra Pro Wrestling videos, we've gotten glimpses into what the creation suite looks like and the improvements we've seen over time. This is a super early template, so do not take this as what the creation suite's going to look like. Just wanted to preface that.
People will accept that, I'm sure. That'll be fine.
Well, and just before you got to the Kickstarter, that's kind of where I got involved with the project because I had seen you go on different YouTube channels and speak to different people, explaining and showing off some very, very early footage of the game. But what struck me most about all of it was that your idea for what wrestling would be, how you would present it, was different from anybody else out there. It had a grand vision for it. And I distinctly remember it was like RVD versus Taz, your version.
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
But it was going up to stuff and changing the date. And you saying, oh, like, I want to go back to this specific date and this event.
So again, this is like stuff he was doing for himself. We're not going to be getting these different arenas in Ultra Pro Wrestling. You're going to be able to create them yourself with the Create an Arena, with the image uploader, all that. This was just more of a proof of concept for himself, being able to make like these arenas, the same with the RVD character, the Taz character. They are not in Ultra Pro Wrestling. One or the other may become DLC at some point. Probably not due to contracts and everything else. But those models you saw of Taz and RVD are not going to be, they're not the representative of what the game looks like or anything. Again, this is pre-alpha concept stuff that he's doing way before Ultra Pro Wrestling was even like the Kickstarter even started.
It was the sort of game that when I was like 8 years old, I dreamed of making. You know, like in your head, and you add every fantastical element without any consideration for, can you program that? Can you run that? Can you do anything? But what you had laid out was that exciting vision that anyone that was a kid and loved wrestling, that's the sort of game that they would want to play.
Yeah, this is why you're here, because you're reminding me of stuff that I'd want to say that, like, you know, that I'd forget. The reason that was part of my thought process is, again, going back to the mods for the AKI mods. I really like those mods, and I thought, you know, you've got the ECW mod, and you've got the WCW mod, and then you've got the old school classic WWF mod. But it's such a shame that you can't bring these things together.
But now you can.
I mean, me just recreating Revenge. Oh fuck! I can. You know, I could put, you know, DDP and Raven in there, but I could also just grab Austin and Hogan and stuff like that. Now you can obviously make a mod where you've got, here's the WCW guys, here's the. But I'm greedy. I wanted fucking everybody. I wanted every ECW guy. I wanted the whole universe that just was the actual real life wrestling universe. All the Japanese guys. Imagine just, and then you start thinking, oh well, imagine I'm Raven and I'm playing as Raven and I'm in ECW. But I can just think, fuck it, I'm bored of ECW. I want to see what happens if Raven then goes off to Japan at that time.
So this is the precursor. This is what they want our career to be. Through the 80s and the 90s, they want you to be able to take your character, whichever one you pick, and again, they have in-game wrestlers that, like Hal Haney has designed, this awesome roster of characters, but you're going to be able to change out every in-game roster member with whoever you want, with your own custom creation if you want. So if you download a Steve Austin or a Raven in this case, as he's talking about, and put it over, say, Blue Collar Bill Dollar, and you want to see the storyline you're in, it's an 80s storyline, but you want to see what happened instead of being in the NWA, what if he was in All Japan Pro Wrestling? So you can take him out of that. You literally are going to have all those options in the career mode, starting with the 80s at launch with the game. But this is what the career mode is based around, and this is what this whole game is based around, is for you to be able to turn it into your own wrestling sandbox. That's why this wrestling game was created with no actual active real wrestlers involved. That's why all the DLC characters, all the real life wrestlers, they're paid DLC, because they didn't have a budget to pay wrestlers to be in their game, and it would have been a worse game if they did, because they would have lacked elsewhere. The way they're able to get all those DLC wrestlers you've seen, free agents for this game, and the reason you have to pay for them a la carte separately from the game itself, is because they're splitting the proceeds from each DLC character with the wrestler or their estate, the real life wrestler, or in the case of promotions, they're splitting the revenue 50-50, and they're allowing the wrestlers or their estates to set the price of their specific character. So prices are going to vary in these DLC wrestlers, but the whole point of the game, it was designed for you to be able to create your own WWF from the golden era through the 80s, through the 90s, through the 2000s, 2010s, or WCW or ECW or New Japan or any promotion you've ever dreamt of. The whole point is for you to be able to make everything with the Creation Suite, so you don't have to buy any of those DLCs. Just because there's a DLC of a Matt Cardona doesn't mean you can't get a perfectly suitable free Matt Cardona from Community Creations. Now, if you want to support Matt Cardona directly, paying for his DLC will send half the money will go to him, the other half will go to Hyperfocus Games. So it's pretty cool if you want to support those wrestlers. But if you just want certain wrestlers in your game, say like the British Bulldog, but maybe you don't have the funds to buy all the DLC, you'll still be able to make your own or download a very serviceable version of those characters. And also it's meant so that for characters that aren't DLC, say for example, let's use a Roman Reigns, for example, because obviously contracted to WWE. You should be able to make a perfectly adequate in-game model of him that suits the art style, that suits the game, so that you'll be able to have your own universe. This is meant for you to be able to turn this into the sandbox wrestling game of your dreams, whether it's WCW, ECW, AEW, WWF, WWE, New Japan, All Japan, AAA, UFC, because they're even going to have an MMA-style cage in the game. You're literally going to be able to create the game that you want out of this with the Creation Suite and the Community Creations. And that's what turned me on so much to this game, is its amazing Creation Suite. Create an arena, create a logo, create an everything. This game is going to be centered around the creations so that you can turn it into your own personal sandbox of the video game you want to play, the fighting wrestling game that you want with your own roster. It's awesome.
So that's where I started thinking about, oh, this has to be like this world map thing with all these different promotions, and you can jump between them, and then you're like, oh well, the time, everything changes over time.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, well, just in the way that you can select a different costume, you know, you can select a different arena. Like, you know, you've got the arena, the, you know, whatever it is, Fall Brawl from 90, whatever, you know. So yeah, that just kind of got in my head of like, I want a bunch of different promotions, and I want time to be an element as well.
Yeah.
So that's why if you're playing through WWF in the 80s, the roster might change to the 90s, or the attires might change. So if you've got a Hulk Hogan, so say from like 82, he's going to look way different than if you get Hulk Hogan from 98 or Hulk Hogan from 2002. And you're going to have those different attires, and you're going to have even the option for each different attire, you can assign a different move set. You can assign a different entrance, so that you can have those wrestlers evolve over time, or just be completely different wrestlers in every attire slot. And you're not limited to 4 attire slots either. You're going to be able to have more attire slots for each individual character. And again, they can have their own separate entrances, even their own separate move sets and finishers. So if you have an American Badass Undertaker that you've created, but you still want the early 90s Undertaker Deadman, or maybe even an 80s like Big Red or any of his old like pre-Undertaker gimmicks, you can have that, and then have, as it progresses through time, you have like the early 90s Undertaker, then you have the mid 90s, then you have like the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker. Then when you get to like the American Badass, his finisher and moveset can change slightly. He doesn't use the Tombstone anymore. Now he uses the Last Ride. And then he can transition back to the Deadman. And like, it's amazing that the thought, the love, the care, the passion that they show and that they have for wrestling and for these games. It's incredible that we're going to get some stuff that we've never ever seen before, and I'm so excited for it.
And then when I did that, I'm sure I'll find the footage for that somewhere as well, the RVD Taz thing. I actually only quickly stuck together the Taz character, just so that it would kind of piece together the ECW feel. Because the real reason I did that was I wanted to see the ramp and the entrance, the stage, that brick stage. In fact, I'm trying to again, the timeline's lost on me, but I remember taking textures from backstage in No Mercy, because I wanted to preserve the pixelated, you know, aesthetic too as well at one point. So this is probably not that ECW thing, but I remember finding textures backstage and thinking, oh, I could use that. Oh, you know what it was? This is what I did. The Royal Rumble and No Mercy had the taxi cab.
Oh yeah, right, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But at the sides, it had the brickwork.
Oh aye.
So I got the textures for the brickwork, and I just photoshopped them so that they were exactly how they were, but now I could use them and rotate them and piece bits together, and that's how I made the first the first time I made the ECW brick. So that when you see that
That
brick,
is passion, ladies and
it's not
gentlemen.
just Sam's went into Photoshop and made some brick. That is actually how the AKI developers made brick. And so,
Attention to
so
detail.
that's how fucking obsessed I am with this shit.
Exactly.
So
And that's awesome.
So anyway, yeah, the footage with RVD and Taz, that entranceway, I don't know if that's that original one that I made from the brick. It might be. I'd need to go back and look at it. In fact, yeah, something tells me it is. And even actually the so you've got the brickwork of the entranceway, but then you've got the side bits that come out, and they're all that chicken wire mesh.
Yeah.
So of course we've got chicken wire mesh backstage, and with the cage as well, and actually used the chicken wire mesh that was backstage. You had the boiler room, and so there was a door, and that door I thought we can use that for the cage and for the Hell in a Cell. So I made
That's what I was talking about
Hell in
earlier.
a Cell again, using the same graphics from the same textures from No Mercy, so that I'm literally seeing what it would have looked like if the AKI developers had made that Hell in a Cell. So yeah, I was always doing stuff like that. It just that, you know, fascinates me.
I think all of that came through when you were doing these interviews with people like this passion about wanting to create something not just as a close to AKI or this, but literally spot on version of it, but with all the other features, all the extra love, all the attention to detail, but with a plan to actually put it in motion and do it. A lot of people have said, I want to make a wrestling game, and then they fall short on step 2 or 3.
That sort of speaks to my personality, I think, and the fact that I spent so many years wanting to be a wrestler. Like, how many people when they were kids said, I'm going to be a wrestler?
Yeah.
Right.
I can't say I fully followed it through, because I did end up not becoming a wrestler, and I stopped when I was like in my 20s. But I think most kids would have stopped saying that when they were like 8, you know, where it's like, I was like, no, if I'm going to do something, I'm seeing it through to the end. I don't care, like, fuck everything else. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it.
Would you say you were hyper focused on it?
I was yeah. Well, it's funny, like, because it's
Pun
fun, but
intended.
it's true. Like, that is where hyper focus games comes from. It's a ADHD term, and I've got ADHD, and this explains so much of my personality. And when I become hyper focused on one thing, everything else around me just evaporates, and I can barely even have a conversation with someone about anything unless it's that thing. So
I got a little bit of that myself.
I'm hyper focused on this game, and it's not ever wavered.
So, Dubious Ones, that was part 1. I will be showing off right here for you some of the gameplay footage as well. I just wanted you to see that first before we get into the new gameplay, as I thought this was super, super awesome. Really, really neat stuff. And again, that's why it's part 1, is because we've already gone over an hour in this video, because I wanted to leave you my thoughts as well. That's why we're splitting this up. But for those of you who wanted to tune in for the animations, the new moves that we got out of the game, as well as the big announcement at the end, here we go. So this is, once again, the new moves. Again, you're getting to see the animation of the person doing the move, as well as the person taking the move. So again, the amount of time and passion and love that has gone into this game, as you can see on the bottom, they showed the number of moves recorded so far. We're at 764. Part of that's getting cut off by my little lightning on the bottom there. But it's 765 for this, for Jericho's Powerbomb B. Then we've got Linda's Slap at 766. So just giving you an idea of the amount of time. Like, there's like over 5,000 moves that they've had to animate, that if it was just Sam alone would take over 7+ years. And that was what he was thinking of, was like 2,800 moves. It's a total with all the setups and all the different positions and all the reaction shots and everything. It's over 5,000 moves. So this is, and that's not gameplay or anything else. That's just animating the moves. So you have to appreciate what the small team of like 5 developers is doing for this game. And look how beautiful the models in this game look. I'm a big fan of how the models look in this game. I appreciate it so much. But I really just wanted you guys to be able to see this as well. I'm getting appreciation for those at Hyper Focus Games. I appreciate them so much. For just keeping me in the loop and, giving me shout outs and everything else they've done for me. They've been so great to me. I appreciate all the guys so much. But here is the big announcement. Flying too close to the sun with the AKI stuff. I'm sorry, I might have had the desktop audio muted, so I'm just going to start this over for you. But this is that big, big announcement here.
We're kind of flying too close to the sun with the AKI stuff. We're talking about AKI, or AKI. I can't remember what who pronounces it what. I've always called it AKI.
Yeah. I've always called it AKI.
People might say, like, we're too focused on those particular animations. We should have just created our own animations. Again, that's not where my heart is. My heart is in reproducing and recreating, even with the game engine. The goal is to reproduce and recreate it as accurately as possible as a baseline. Same with the animations. These are all baseline. We will create more.
Thank you.
And with the gameplay, we will expand on it. But of course, people will say, even in the course of this video, the amount of times that we've mentioned AKI, we're going to get a lawsuit, because we're just talking about AKI, and we're perhaps convincing people that we are AKI.
Yeah.
Because
Wanna do
people
that.
will look and they won't know the difference, and especially with the animations being so close. Or if we were ever to promote something and show AKI footage, or if we were to do something like Hyper Focus Games Man, when he's like a character that we've made, but it's very, very similar to AKI Man, people might look at that and question it.
It's true.
And so, to anyone that does have a problem with all the AKI references and how much we talk about AKI,
You can suck it.
you have to understand that to us, that's all we care about. I mean, we like wrestling, we like wrestling games, but AKI is at the top of the list of the things that we care about. It's reproducing that engine, because otherwise it's dead. And the fact is, outside of the modern community, those games for the last 25 years
Yeah.
have been dead. AKI was dead.
Yes.
Yep.
Was.
Was dead.
It was dead.
Was.
What do you mean by that, sir?
It was dead.
What do you mean by that?
And it's not dead anymore. Because Hyperfocus Games now own the trademarks for AKI, AKI USA, and the logo. And of course we got Hal to draw AKI Man as well. So what does this mean for Hyperfocus Games? Well, I mean, we're not changing our name or anything like that, but
Look at that!
it does mean that we can now...
Sorry. We went back too far. Look at that, chat. Look at Hal Haney's rendition of AKI Man, Aki Man, whatever you want to call him, in the AJ Styles pose and everything, with the AJ Styles hoodie up. Oh my goodness, chat. This is amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I love it. This is huge news. We will do a separate video as far as speculation as to what this could mean. But I would like you guys to get started speculating in the comment section down below what this could mean for the game. I'll have a separate video on that for you guys, but I wanted to get you guys my reactions to this first. Again, this is just a little preview of part 2 that is coming for you guys of this big, massive interview we got.
Well, I mean, we're not
let's hear
changing
from
our
them.
name or anything like that, but
Not changing the name.
it does mean that we can now promote AKI with this
Exactly.
game. We now no longer have to say that we are a spiritual successor. We are now the actual successor
Yeah.
to those games.
Yes.
Which I'm sure will rub some people the wrong way. I'm sure of it. But this really is our dream, and being able to put the AKI logo anywhere near this game is a dream come true for us.
Absolutely.
So we've decided to do that,
It's incredible news.
and I hope you are all happy with that news.
We sure are.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Boom.
There's a bombshell for you.
Exactly.
And on that bombshell.
On that
And on that
bombshell.
bombshell, we've been filming for fucking 4 hours or something.
Dubious Ones. That is so huge. That is amazing news. What better hands could the Aki branding, the AKI, could those trademarks and everything go to? I'm so very happy. Dubious Ones, you have no idea. This is amazing. Everybody, Sam, everyone at Hyperfocus Games, I appreciate all of you. Again, links to all their socials will be down below if you want to see the full unedited video. Again, link to that is going to be in the description down below. But thank you all so much for watching, Dubious Ones. I know you've been waiting for my response to this big interview. I wanted to do something special, but again, I couldn't fit it all into one video. I know I could have made a quick 2-minute video being like, oh my god, they got the Aki license, so great. What does this mean? That I can do as a separate video, but this is something, there was so much to this interview, and there's still even more to it. So stay tuned for part 2, of course. But Dubious Ones, I really hope you appreciate all the time and effort I put into this video, cutting down that interview together, piecing things together, and of course, giving my reactions for you guys. I hope you really enjoyed the video. And Dubious Ones, stay tuned. I will catch you all in the next one. I appreciate you all for watching. Thank you, and until then, deuces.